Hello, my name is Stephen Martin, and this is my presentation for the Multimodal project for EGS 301. Our complex problem and solutions are being discussed, and mine is internet censorship and how it is a problem and what we can do as some solutions. So I'm going to try to go through this real fast because this is like the second time I've done this. Alright, so my introduction. Basically, major social media platforms are censoring online speech of Americans. U.S. government has created laws to protect online content spaces from being held liable for content published on their sites. I'm going to pull up an article on Politico and read a little bit. A provision of the 1996 Communications Act shows that Section 230 protects social media companies by restricting lawsuits against the firms about content users posted on their sites. The legal shield Section 230 could safeguard the companies from the product liability claim. So basically, social media platforms are being protected from lawsuits because they can't be seen as something that editorializes like a newspaper, which can be sued. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a clip from a episode of Timcast IRL where they discuss this issue. Puts it thickly. So that's the argument, right? If you are editorializing by saying what content can and can't be on your platform, and it has nothing to do with it being illegal, you shouldn't be protected legally because now you're editorializing. So to get back to my presentation, my thesis is the government protections afforded by Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Act need to be abolished federally, and social media companies need to be held accountable as publishers of content if they intend to restrict controversial narratives on their platforms, because the ongoing censorship is a form of editorializing which is not protected under law. So who is censoring content and why is it wrong? Well, the major social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, are the biggest culprits, which they have almost virtual monopolies over their different sectors of social media. There aren't really many competitors out there trying to compete with them, so they control narratives. They basically do this by having their users agree to their terms and conditions. So if we go to another paper, it's peer-reviewed. It's called, actually I'm not 100% sure it's peer-reviewed, but it's well documented. It's called The Private Censorship of Internet Gatekeepers, and it does a great job of really delving into the topic. But on page 27, it talks about Facebook's user agreement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically after it tells you what they do, they get you signed up, they get you to agree, and then you're under their rules. So basically I'm going to read one little thing here. The current legal framework does not provide users with any powerful means should they find themselves in a quarrel with the platform. Even though Section 230 Communication Decency Acts of 1996 incentivizes platforms not to use private regulation by granting them immunity regarding illegal content available on the platform, it certainly does not prohibit private censorship. So they're using it as a shield because of its intent was so that people could use the platforms and post and have free speech, and these platforms wouldn't be held liable for what was posted. But now they are, even though there's nothing that says they can't, now they're kind of going against what is called the spirit of the law. So that's why there's such a huge debate surrounding this topic. You can also look at YouTube's conditions, and basically this is their harassment and bullying policies, just some examples of things that are protected. I'm going to read one that I think is awfully weird. Targeting an individual and making claims they are involved in human trafficking in the context of harmful conspiracy theory, where the conspiracy is linked to direct threats or violent acts. So it doesn't even have to be the person is doing the direct threats or violent acts. It's that they're talking about some kind of conspiracy linked to it. So you can see they have quite a bit of latitude as to what they want to censor. And it could be anything they want. And Twitter, this is an NPR article, talks about the Twitter files. I'm just going to read from it on what the Twitter files are. They're a collection of internal emails and Slack chat capturing Twitter employees discussing company policies and fraught moderation calls. So far, they've covered the decision to ban Trump, Twitter's short-lived decision to block a news story in October 2020, drawn from material on Hunter Biden's laptop, and how the company limits the reach of accounts that break its rules, including some well-known right-wing users. So these are all things that the government has kind of been having back and forth with Twitter about, and has accomplished getting bans on Twitter, it seems. So as you can see, there is censorship going on, and it has to do with these platforms being too powerful, and it's being exploited both by the platforms themselves and the government. So I just read from you from these articles, YouTube and the Bond paper on NPR. Freedom of speech permits individuals to criticize and hold those in powers to account. So this is a peer-reviewed article by Stephen Thiel. And in this article, I'm just going to read a short little bit of it. It is crucial to individual autonomy, protecting the expression of controversial ideas and information, as well as structurally important to a well-functioning democracy because it permits individuals to criticize and hold those in power to account. So if we are not able to talk freely online on these social media accounts, narratives are going to be constructed and maintained, and people that have dissenting voices are not going to be able to challenge mainstream narratives, and that is dangerous. So we're going to go ahead and go to there are what is being done, right? So there are some things being done. Texas and Florida are two good examples. In Texas, there's Senate Bill 7072. And in Florida, that's what, 7072, excuse me. And in Texas, it's House Bill 20. So I'm going to read a little bit from an article about 7072. In 2021, DeSantis signed into law Senate Bill 7072, which imposes fines of $250,000 per day on social media companies that deplatform political candidates running for statewide office, and $25,000 per day for deplatforming candidates running for local office. So this was a way to fight back against candidates that were being deplatformed. Deplatforming is another type of censorship. It's where you don't allow someone on their platform because of something they may have said or done. So that's a way Florida has fought back. And in Texas, the laws themselves have become, it's a little more direct, with it saying that people can't be censored pretty much unless it's something illegal that they're talking about online. And this has actually been in contention. Appeals court upheld the decision from the law, But the Supreme Court, earlier before the appeals court upheld it, basically put a temporary halt on it. So they blocked it for a while, but it eventually got upheld. So it is law in Texas. Donald Trump is basically running his whole campaign on the idea of censorship being a problem, and he says censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. I gotta get through this. Gosh. All right, so that's what's being done to fight it. So last, why is censorship bad for citizens? Well, there are studies where they go into countries and look at what happens if you censor people. The ones that we're going to look at are out of, there's one that looks at Iran, Turkey, and France, and there's one that looks at China. And I'm going to briefly touch on them. So the one that looks at Iran, France, and Turkey, it says all the measures are accompanied by widespread arrests and heavy prosecution of journalists, activists, bloggers, and ordinary citizens. So this is what results from censorship in these countries. In China, it says all the censorship backfires across countries in response to internet censorship. So they're finding that in China, a lot of the things they're trying to suppress, it's getting worse, it's fomenting. So what happens is people have anger, fear, resentment, and mistrust when they're being censored online. In conclusion, America needs to act on social media censorship to preserve the rights of its citizens. Federal legislation can take away protections being exploited by the social media companies, so that protection that allows them, that can go away if we fight it federally instead of just states. Citizens need to challenge censorship, and free speech is vital for a healthy society. We've seen that as democracies. That's been our motto, and we don't need to stray from it. So I'm going to show you my sources real quick and end this presentation. We're excited. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I did gather from a lot of different works for this. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, my name's Stephen Martin.